We're back with some breaking news as flights are resuming at airports across the U.S. This is a live look at Hartsfield-Jackson Airport in Atlanta, one of the few airports that had already been cleared to resume flights. Keep in mind that is on the East Coast. It is a rapidly developing situation right now, and we have calls out to officials at Sea-Tac and at our local airlines. We are looking at the impact at our local airports at Sea-Tac and also at Payne Field. We're also tracking the impact nationwide. This is a live look at LAX at this hour. The FAA says some of its systems are indeed coming back online, but this is still not clear in terms of exactly what happened. Team coverage starts with King 5's aviation reporter Kristen Goodwillie right now. So, Kristen, what is the latest update?
Christine, departures resumed here around 6 a.m. It was about roughly 2.5 hours after the FAA initially tweeted about this overnight outage. People have been flowing in all morning, checking in over here. This was common. Even at 4:30 in the morning, people were checking in. We have seen delays, but not many cancellations. At last check, the FAA tweeted that it's making progress in restoring its notice to air mission system following an overnight outage. The White House has been notified, and they notified the president and says there is no evidence of a cyber attack at this point, though the president has directed the Department of Transportation to conduct a full investigation. We also heard from Senator Maria Cantwell's office, who sent in a statement as the committee prepared for FAA reauthorization legislation. We will be looking into what caused this outage and how redundancy plays a role in preventing future outages. Now, looking at FlightAware, there have been many delays here at Sea-Tac, but over 6,000 across the United States just from this morning, and that is going in, within, and out of the U.S. And we're talking about this system. How is it possible that this outage caused so many delays and cancellations? Well, it's because it affected the NOTAMs, which essentially are notes that give pilots information about their flight path. It covers everything from restrictions at airports to flight hazards such as birds in the air. And so pilots need the NOTAM to be able to fly and to be able to understand what that flight path looks like. And that is why there was such a widespread impact, is because pilots weren't able to access these NOTAMs and didn't really know the conditions. And so at this point, we are continuing to cover this and figure out exactly what the cause was. But it is good news here from the White House saying at least that right now there is no evidence of a cyber attack. Christine.
All right, Kristen, thank you very much for that latest update. Let's check in now with Farah Jadran, who is also live at Sea-Tac Airport this morning with how passengers are dealing with this. Farah.
Yeah, Christine, so far I've probably talked to a few dozen passengers throughout the morning, and the good news is that they don't seem to be highly impacted here. I want to say the number of flights has grown, of delays have grown to maybe 10 or 15 by the hour. So now we're up to about 60 delays here total, and they're about an hour, and most of them are destinations to the Midwest, some here along the West Coast to cities in California, so those could be weather related. Not sure what's completely related to the NOTAM outage overnight. Take a look here. This is where folks are checking in for Alaska. Alaska is one of a few airlines that put out notices earlier in the day just to let people know they were aware of the outage that the FAA was warning airlines about, and that just you should check in with your airline for the status of your flight. But again, things have seemed pretty business as usual here at Sea-Tac, which is good news. And really, you have to think it's because we're here on the West Coast. We weren't dealing with those early flights on East Coast time that were getting the most impacts early on in the day. So everyone I talked to said they did not get an alert to their phone where normally you'd get an alert saying your flight's been canceled or it's been delayed. Nobody got alerts like that with even a warning. So that is the good news for now. But again, keep an eye on your flight status. Check it before you head out to the airport. Like I said, the delays have grown just a little bit every hour, so you could be impacted as the day goes on. Live at Sea-Tac International Airport, Farah Jadran, King 5 News.
Thank you, Farah. Again, we still don't know exactly what caused the FAA's notice to air mission system to experience that outage overnight. But to get some more insight on all of this, joining us live now is Captain John Cox. He is a veteran pilot and CEO of the aviation consulting firm Safety Operating Systems. Good morning, Mr. Cox. So first off, we heard from our local congressman about this. They're looking into this too. What are investigators going to be looking at exactly starting now?
Well, the first and most important thing was to get the system back up and operational. And they were successful in doing that. Now the questions of why. There are redundancies built into the system. What failed? Where was the single point failure? Those are all going to be identified and steps taken to prevent a reoccurrence of this. There's a lot of visibility with this because it impacted so many flights. So the FAA is going to be looking at it. DOT will be looking at it. And I'm sure there'll be some congressional questions about it as well.
So we're getting word from the White House, at least for now, and from federal officials that there is nothing to be concerned of in terms of whether this was a cyber attack or whether it was malicious. But at the same time, even if it were a computer glitch, that's also very concerning that something with the technology could have such far-reaching effects. I mean, how vulnerable are these systems?
Well, the NOTAM system itself, the information distribution, has been around for decades and decades, as long as I've been flying, which is 53 years. So the distribution of the information is well established. How that information is distributed, of course, has evolved over time. And I think that that's going to be the focus of it, to see what happened here and to utilize upcoming technology to increase the effectiveness of the NOTAM system, but also the reliability of it.
So when we think about the passengers, they dealt with a lot over the holiday weekend, and here we have another snag. This might have been more impactful for flights over on the East Coast, but what might the domino effect look like for passengers who still have a flight later on today here on the West Coast?
I think the domino effect is going to be with us certainly all through the day today and probably well into tomorrow. Even as the East Coast was able to start releasing airplanes, they couldn't release all of them at one time. They had to be metered. And so there is still delays going on because the airspace system just can't absorb all of the airplanes at one time. Consequently, during the course of the day, airplanes that were supposed to arrive, say, in Seattle this morning, well, they're going to be getting there this afternoon. And that delay will mean that this evening, when the airplane would go on to Hawaii or back to the East Coast or to Canada, that airplane's going to be delayed. So it will be well through the day today across the country where these delays will be impacting. And into tomorrow, hopefully the weather will cooperate. By then, the system, by afternoon tomorrow, the system should be resilient enough to be pretty well back up to 100%.
Okay, Captain Cox, this is exactly the kind of stuff we had questions about. Thank you so much for your insight. We'll check back in with you perhaps throughout the day for an update. And of course, we'll keep an eye on those flight delays.